Today we'll discuss how to properly set up a brand protection campaign for hotels using Google Ads. Now, brand protection campaigns are widely adopted by the hotel industry and are typically the first campaigns to be implemented. I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you, of these type of campaigns due to a significant problem that there's no counterproof. It's impossible to actually calculate what revenue might have been generated if a brand protection campaign wasn't in place, as opposed to having one up and running. Despite this issue, many hotels worldwide continue to use these kind of campaigns, with the goal, of course, to protect potential direct traffic from being diverted to third-party sites, especially the OTAs. Although they can be boring and unattractive, I have to say, but considering their broad usage among hotels all over the world, it's worth investing some time to understand how to best utilize the budget allocated for Google Ads and optimize their performance. As a matter of fact, I often encounter several common mistakes in these campaigns, so today I'd like to explore the main characteristics with you, pitfalls to avoid when setting up a hotel brand protection campaign, and opportunities to explore in order to get the most out of the investment. You'll notice that these reasons are more logical than technical, so hopefully you might find something interesting and valuable in this discussion. So without further ado, let's dig in. Point number one, go for purchase only. Now, why do we launch brand protection campaigns for our hotels on Google Ads? Have we ever questioned the reasoning behind this? Because it may seem trivial, but the answer I'm about to provide reveals common mistake often made. Now, we create brand protection campaigns to safeguard the traffic that could potentially be stolen by third-party channels, right? And who are these third-party channels? Mainly the OTAs like Booking and Expedia. So sometimes other hotel competitors may try to get traffic who's been looking for us and try to divert it to their site, but that's going to be quite a tough job for them. We mainly protect our traffic from the OTAs. And what can users do when they eventually land on the OTA sites like Booking or Expedia? They can only book through their site. Can they submit a contact form to get in contact with you on Booking or Expedia? No. Can they search for your phone number on these sites so that they can call you? No again. If people want to contact you via form or email or call you, they can only do that through your website or direct channels. So what's the point of protecting traffic of people who may want to contact you via form, via email? It makes no sense because they only have your website or direct channels to do that. They can't submit a contact form or call you from an OTA site. The only thing that OTAs can steal from us are online bookings that would have otherwise been made through our direct booking engine. That's the only goal that you should optimize your brand protection campaign for. Online bookings through your booking engine. Optimizing a campaign towards other goals like calls from ads or leads is useless because you have no competitors to protect from when people want to either call you or get in contact with you in written form. It's going to be a waste of budget and resources that you simply can't afford to face. Point number two, it's not the brand protection campaign that doesn't work. Now, unlike the other industries, the hotel industry world has a unique aspect that significantly impacts a marketing and advertising campaign, which is revenue and distribution. It's not always the case that an advertising or brand protection campaign fails because it's purely executed. It could simply be due to distribution or revenue issues making direct channels less appealing compared to other channels or hotels. For instance, a potential guest might visit your website after seeing you on an OTA site, but then realize that other hotels in the areas offer better value proposition. Alternatively, our direct channel may not necessarily be more advantageous in terms of room prices, rates, cancellation policies, payment conditions, and so on. Consequently, if there's a distribution issue, we are paying for traffic that won't lead to direct bookings. So guests will likely still book through third-party channels, meaning we are essentially paying for traffic we won't be able to convert directly. In conclusion, a brand protection campaign may not be failing due to poor configuration. First and foremost, it's essential to have a robust and accurate online hotel distribution strategy, leaving no room for the OTAs to gain bookings from their site. And at the same time, we must ensure we provide an enticing and appealing value proposition for potential guests. Otherwise, we risk losing them altogether. Point number 3, use only exact match keywords. Now, When managing keywords for your brand protection campaigns, ensure you use only exact match keywords, not broad match or phrase match. The reason for this is that broad and phrase match types don't provide the precision needed for a brand protection campaign. Now, you may initially use phrase match eventually to test potential search terms users might associate with your brand, but this testing phase should only last, say, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the generated volume, of course. Once the testing phase is over, focus exclusively on search terms closely related to your brand name without delving into long-tail keywords whatsoever. You'll notice, in fact, that those terms that people enter on Google and that drive conversion are always the same, and they typically are close variants of your hotel name with no long tails. So why spend money towards terms that simply don't or barely convert? So avoid using phrase match, as it may attract irrelevant traffic, eroding the budget that could be allocated to more relevant search terms that lead to direct bookings. In all cases, though, exclude broad match type keywords when discussing brand protection campaigns. Stay away from broad match type keywords as if they were the worst enemy, resisting also the continuous alerts from Google itself trying to persuade you to use broad match type keywords all over the places. Broad match keywords attract unnecessary traffic and require daily cleanup of negative keywords to remove irrelevant search terms that waste the campaign funds. Often these irrelevant terms are competitor names, which is not the goal of a brand protection campaign. If you want to create a campaign targeting competitors, then allocate a separate budget for that purpose. In a brand protection campaign, just solely focus on protecting your brand. As I often say in advertising, there's no such thing as hitting two birds with one rock. One campaign, one goal. Period. So for a brand protection campaign, disregard any search terms related to competitors and concentrate on your own hotel brand. Period. Point number 4, negative out, phone and email. Now, remember our discussion about focusing on chasing purchase goals rather than lead generation or calls from ads? Now, we concluded that the primary purpose of a brand protection campaigns is to safeguard direct traffic from potential third parties, especially the OTAs. And we noted that users through the OTA systems can only book online. If they want to call or email, they have no choice but to use our website or our direct channels, such as, for example, our Google business profile. So why should we pay for traffic from someone searching for our hotel's name plus phone number? So Hotel Palace Milan phone. A user searching for this simply wants the hotel's phone number because they want to contact them directly. And where can they find that hotel phone number? Only on our site or direct channels like our Google business profile again. It's unnecessary to pay to acquire such traffic would likely obtain organically for free. Therefore, we should negative out the terms related to phone numbers. The same logic applies to email searches. If someone searches for Hotel Palace Milan email, they're clearly looking for hotel's email address, probably to send a written communication. Where else can they find your hotel's email address? Nowhere but your direct channels. Consequently, there's no need to compete with ourselves by targeting these terms. Point number 5, don't stress out too much about bidding strategy. Now, maximize conversion value, target impression share, and maximize clicks are just a few of the many bidding strategies available within Google Ads campaigns. It's easy to get confused with all these options. However, the bidding strategy isn't the most critical aspect of a brand protection campaign. The key is to follow the logic, in my opinion. What do we want from a brand protection campaign? We want to obtain as many direct bookings as possible. Consequently, we could optimize for maximize conversion, for example, or even better, maximize conversion value bidding strategies. Since we are discussing online reservation, a $1,000 booking holds more value than a $100 booking, simple as that. Therefore, it makes more sense to choose maximize conversion value where Google will optimize the conversion value. This bidding strategy is particularly useful when budgets are relatively low and we don't have enough funds to cover the entire impression share. In such cases, we aim to cover high yield impression shares that Google can identify as highly convertible, while disregarding those deemed less convertible. However, there may be cases or instances where we realize that, for example, cost per clicks are quite significantly higher with an automatic strategy like maximize conversion or maximize conversion value. And in such cases, we could consider a more manual approach where we manage the maximum cost per click click ourselves? If conversion performance remains satisfactory, we could reduce the cost while maintaining high conversions. Ultimately, though, it's best, like I said, not to spend too much time on these aspects and instead focus on monitoring results to make informed decisions. Point number 6, use different ad copy angles, USPs, book direct, and so on, but always focus on value. Now, when creating copy for your ads, especially the headlines on Google Ads for your hotel's brand protection campaign, always aim to provide value and not just claim to, get direct bookings simply because you make yourself visible. Now, keep in mind that users have multiple options when searching for your hotel's name, and it's not always the result in position number 1 that gets clicked. They can click on your result or perhaps another site trying to capture your direct traffic, such as Booking.com, Expedia. So how do we compete with them? You compete through compelling copy and engaging words. As you have the opportunity to showcase 2 or 3 headlines in front of potential customers, strive to deliver value by using different angles. Be creative and emphasize your hotel's unique selling proposition, for example, or USPs, or differentiating factors. Highlight the reasons for booking directly with you, of course, such as better rates or discount. So for instance, if you offer a 10% discount compared to rates found on Booking.com or Expedia, clearly state that. Book direct and save 10%. This is an excellent headline that gets straight to the point. However, don't solely focus on the concept of direct bookings. Use other angles as well. Showcase any active promotion during the specific periods or limited time offers like, 20% discount available only until a certain date. Include these deals in your ad copy because they're more likely to be exclusive to direct bookings, which increase the chances of not only getting clicks, but also actual reservations. As said, the key takeaways is that you must provide value anyway in your copy. Your ads aren't just for visibility and showcasing your hotel, but also for generating clicks and ultimately leading to bookings. So ensure that you deliver value right from the start with compelling ad copy. Point number 7, it's okay if the OTAs get their slice. Now, the budget required for your hotel brand protection campaign on Google obviously depends on search volumes. While it may seem trivial, some hotels generate a few hundred requests per day, while others may generate a few thousand. How many of these requests do we want to cover? That's up to us and the strategy that we have in mind. If we want to cover all of them, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with aiming to cover 100% of all brand-related searches. However, it's important to accept that some impressions will go through the OTAs anyway, especially when budgets are limited or when we want to allocate funds for other types of campaigns, which I always suggest doing, by the way. In fact, it's not wise to spend too much money on brand protection campaigns alone, in my opinion. It's better to be clear about our goals and focus on higher quality impressions by implementing, for example, a bidding strategy more focused on conversions rather than maximizing clicks. By doing so, we can achieve better results without covering every single possible impression for our brand. So it's okay if some impressions go to the OTAs. There's no need to worry, as it's a part of the game. The key is to make the best use of the available budget. Relying solely on a brand protection campaign isn't, in my opinion, the best approach. Although there may be valid situation for this strategy, it's generally better to allocate budget towards driving traffic from other sources. Point number 8, keep an eye on the search impression share. Now, we've just discussed how it's acceptable for some impressions to go to the OTAs. We don't always need to cover 100% of the impression share. However, there is a crucial metric to monitor regardless within our Google Ads campaign, which is the search impression share. This metric essentially provides a ratio between demand and supply and or the number of times our chosen keywords generate user requests and how often we cover those requests. If we have a 50% search impression share, for example, it means we cover about 50% of the potential market demand. In my opinion, it's not advisable to aim for covering 100% of the search impression share in an attempt to outperform competitors in every single situation, context, and regardless of lead quality. Some may adopt this strategy, but I will never suggest doing so. Either way, it's essential not to approach 100% too closely, because when we do so and we continue to allocate budget, we're effectively telling Google to use that budget even when it's not needed. It's like putting water into a full bucket. Consequently, Google will likely increase costs since it will try to spend your budget even when unnecessary. So even if your strategy aims to cover as much of the impression share as possible, I recommend keep an eye on it and staying actually slightly below. Let's say around 80% or 90%. Avoid going beyond this threshold. Point number 9, negative out TripAdvisor, Trivago, Booking, Expedia. When users search for your hotel's name along with third-party channels such as TripAdvisor or Trivago, so for example, Hotel, Palace, Milan, TripAdvisor, what is the purpose of attempting to actually capture those clicks? Essentially, it makes little sense to steal or retain the traffic of people clearly intending to view your hotel on third-party platforms. At this stage, these leads may not be qualified. They might become qualified later eventually in the funnel, but not now. Searching Hotel, Palace, Milan, TripAdvisors, user's intention is clearly stated. He wants to see this Hotel, Palace, Milan on TripAdvisor. Maybe because he wants to read what other travelers have to say. And think about it, what's the best case scenario of you getting a click for Hotel, Palace, Milan, TripAdvisor? User may click on your result perhaps because it's in the first position, so the user lands on your site to immediately realize that it's not where he wanted to be. So more likely he will get back and will click the TripAdvisor result. So basically you paid for a non-relevant click. The alternative scenario is that the user won't click on your advert, resulting in your advert getting lower CTRs, which in turn will negatively impact the ad rank, or better say the quality score, which in turn negatively impacts your ad rank, which in turn will make your cost go higher. Either way, you are losing. I suggest a negative out third-party terms such as TripAdvisor, Trivago, Expedia, Booking when associated to your brand terms. These terms will generate few clicks since they are not relevant to the user search intent. And if someone searches for Hotel, Palace, Milan, TripAdvisor, or Hotel, Palace, Milan, Booking.com, let them go. Simply these clicks aren't of interest because you have little chances of converting them, at least at this point in time, and they don't align with the user search intent, at least at that point in time. As said before, it's okay to let certain impressions go. So instead of concentrate on high intent searches that instead will convert into bookings. Point number 10, make the most of site links, call out, and image assets. Many hotel brand protection ads may not be optimized simply because appropriate assets haven't been created, especially site links or even callouts, or perhaps even the fact that they haven't applied an image associated to the brand. These elements are quite crucial since users might click on our ad not only because they read and emphasize with our headlines and description, but also due to the fact that they might like certain site links or callout, and these site links or callout or other assets may resonate with their search intent much better. Site links in particular are additional links we can add to our blog displayed on Google and serve as excellent tool for several reasons. First and foremost, they occupy a significant amount of space within the user screen, effectively reducing the space available for other advertisers. This becomes even more crucial on mobile devices if you think about it, because that's where screen space is even more limited. The more space we utilize, the more relevant we become, and the less relevant our competitors appear. For example, a user who is ready to book and is offered with a straight-to-the-point book now or check availability site link might click on that site link as it better resonates with his intention of wanting to make the booking right away. So in summary, optimizing hotel ads involves creating proper assets as well, such as site links, call-outs, images to ensure user engagement, and by doing so, we can improve our ads effectiveness and stand out from competitors, especially on mobile devices where, like I said, screen space is even more limited. Thus, the more we occupy it, the more prominent our advert becomes. Point number 11, turn off display expansion. Now, hotel brand protection campaign is simple as that, a search type of campaign. Google has this powerful feature called display expansion, which allows for the creation of a sort of hybrid campaign that combines both a search and display elements. Essentially, when setting up a search campaign, Google often suggests enabling this feature to activate your campaign within the display network as well. It is, though, in my opinion, advisable to disable this feature for the very simple reason that a brand protection campaign is fundamentally a search campaign and should remain within the search network. And think about it. What's the meaning of activating it in the display network? Now, Google always suggests to turn display expansion on because Google doesn't know that ours is a brand protection campaign. No matter your goal, Google will always suggest you to turn display expansion on. But since we use our brains, before taking everything for granted, we understand that for a brand protection campaign, the display network is the most useless thing that we could rely on. As said before, in advertising, there isn't such thing like two birds with one stone approach. Each campaign should have a clear objective. In this case, the goal is to protect our direct traffic when this traffic is actively searching for our brand terms. Therefore, always disable the display expansion feature and let your search campaign remain with its intended environment. Point number 12, no competitors turn off your campaigns. It's not necessary to run ad campaigns continuously, 365 days, 7 days a week, or whatsoever. There are periods where we don't have OTAs trying to steal our market share, and consequently, it's pointless to keep the campaigns active. These periods vary from hotel to hotel, but at any point in time with Google Ads, we can see who our actual competitors are for the keywords that we're bidding on. If we notice that there are no other competitors, perhaps that's the moment when our campaigns should be paused. Simple as that. We can consider restarting them later on and meanwhile allocating that budget to different types of campaigns. The concept is quite simple. There's no need to spend money where it isn't needed or required. This is it. These were 12 reasons or 12 points to set up a proper hotel brand protection campaign. I hope you enjoyed the video and I see you again in the next video.